Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Superman and Lois. Great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Things were pretty dire last season with all the Kryptonians and everything, because that was kind of like a worldwide event. This is some next level. This is, I feel like, even more apocalyptic than everything with Taro last season. So the worlds are bleeding in together to the point the entire Kent family, along with Natalie, ends up in Bizarro World, and so much stuff is bleeding through. Some of the stuff from their house is bleeding over into this house. So it's like, cool, this is an issue. So it's like, right, how do we fight against this? Clark doesn't have his powers, and lo and behold, who shows up? Taro. I figured he'd come and play, because it's like, right, he is the only other, like, superpowered, like, other than Jordan, he's the only other superpowered person, and at the very least, he's the one that's kind of on the same power level as Clark, so he can even the playing fields. He said he got transported there, but I'm curious if he's just saying, like, right, he got teleported over to this world. He's like, all right, let me go to the one place I do know in either world. So he came to the Kent farm then, but they pop back into the other world. Sadly, who doesn't come with them? Lois. This is like the most depressing, heartbreaking thing, once again, apocalyptic, of like these two worlds are colliding, and the problem is people are getting separated, because it never even crossed my mind to think like, oh, where's Kyle? Like, I figured it had something to do with the Bizarro world, but I thought maybe, like, I don't know, it didn't cross my mind to know that he popped over there, which is heartbreaking. Lana and her children are looking everywhere for him, but it just seems like he disappeared. And even at one point in time, like, a car phased in, and like Lana and Sarah got out of the way. They go check on the car. The people are going, like, Sarah starts freaking out. I'm like, honestly, this would be like the scariest, freakiest situation to ever be in, because people are just, because you're hearing more and more like, oh yeah, so-and-so didn't show up to work. Like, people are just disappearing left and right. And then you add into it, like, now it's like, right, like, what happened to Dad? Like, now, understandably, you'd be scared with everything going on. Because Chrissy put out a message to the entire, like, you know, put it out there being like, what's going on? So, and sadly, on this world, they lost their Lois, but they got the Bizarro Lois too, which I guess is like, we didn't get any interactions really with her, but I guess it's cause someone's like, right, because you know that probably bothered Natalie a little bit too, because it's like, right, it's one thing where it's like, right, she doesn't even have her own mom around, and then it's like, cool, the Lois she has come to know on this earth is gone, and now here's another Lois. Like, it's two Loises that aren't your Lois, you know, so that's also gotta be a little rough. But at the same time, she's worried about her dad, because it's like, right, she doesn't want him to be alone, because she never got an opportunity to say goodbye to her mom, say how proud she was to be her daughter, how much she loved her. It's just always those things you always regret not being able to say what you wanted to say. And she wants to find her dad, go through the portal to reach him, because she heard his voice, knows he's still alive, in between, that space in between the, that void between both worlds. So she wants to reach him. What obviously it's like, right, you guys have your because Jonathan and Jordan, like, at the very least Jordan's like, let me go with you, but it's like, no, I can't let you do that. You've got your family to look after, but they're like, your family too. And she's like, I always liked, you know, I like the thought of having brothers, which I thought was really sweet, them hugging it out like that. But she goes off to help her dad, but granted, she didn't get his entire message. He wanted her to bring X kryptonite so they could, like, supercharge it in her escape pod and use that to kind of blow up the portal and make it so that they get, at the very least, cause an explosion that would disrupt the worlds converging together. So, but regardless of all that, at the very least, it's a dire situation where you're like, there's no way they're going to kill Natalie or John Henry, but it's still like the thing of, it's because you're like, it still sucks, because you obviously, he wouldn't want his daughter here. He'd want her to be safe and okay, but at the same time, like, Natalie won't want to be anywhere but by her dad's side. So this is where she wants to be, and at the very least they can be together potentially at the end. So you had Tauro trying to challenge Allie in the state that she's in right now, and he does, but kind of doesn't, gets pretty quickly knocked down. But luckily Jordan was able to go up there and save him as he was kind of falling. So it's like, yeah, that's kind of a no-go. And so for Clark, it's like, right, I have to it's up to me then. Like, I'll be the one to deal with this. So his plan is to kind of do what I figured as much and basically overcharge himself with the sun. Literally throw himself into the sun so that he overcharges. In the comments down below, do correct me. I'm not the comic book person. I know tidbits here and there from I've heard people talk about and other stuff being referenced, but in All-Star Superman, isn't that how he starts dying? Because and do correct me in this, but my understanding of the All-Star Superman storyline is basically he's dying and Superman is trying to use the last little bit of life he has left to, do what he wants to do. So, is that because I actually don't know how he actually started dying. Is it a byproduct of overcharging himself? Because, him getting overcharged isn't something I think is, even if it's just that story. I think it's come up in plenty of other Superman stories of going to the sun. Because at the very least, Tal-Rho was able to do it because he was the Eradicator. Plus, he was doing it for weeks. So his body could be accustomed to it, but Clark's body would die in that process. What I think is interesting, and this is that thing of I guess Clark doesn't have all his powers, but he still has the constitution of a Kryptonian. Maybe just the natural vacuum of space doesn't affect a Kryptonian like it would a human, just maybe because they're maybe very much like a Time Lord. Their physiology is just naturally different. Even though his physiology leans more towards a human, maybe there's enough of him in his DNA. He might not have his powers, but because it's right, he's in the vacuum in space and it's not affecting him. So that's why I'm almost it's certain aspects of him still Kryptonian enough that he might not have his superpowers. He's still not human, and so the vacuum of space isn't enough to just directly kill him. I don't know if that's the justification for it. Do I care? No, but it's just something that immediately popped up in my mind when Tal-Rho took him to the sun. But for Clark, it's Jordan and Jonathan are worried. It's no, you do this, you could end up dying. He's but I'll be okay. Trust me, I have to do this. This is what I came to this world for, to be Superman. And this is what I got to do. It's I love you guys more than anything in the world. And this is kind of what your mom, it's because Jonathan was oh, that you kind of sound like mom. He's well, your mom is the smartest person in this family. So he's I got to do this. And so I even love that moment between him and Tal-Rho. I do love that as time is going on, especially this season, they've definitely become a lot more brotherly, and I love that he's just so in case I don't ever get this chance to say it to you, he's and Clark's I love you too. And I'm oh, that's super sweet. He's good luck, brother, saying that the world is lucky to have a hero like him. At the same time, Lois in the Bizarro world, she ends up luckily running into her dad, but they went to go see Chrissy, who had a device to kind of, play their messages so that each other could understand. But then her dad disappeared, then Chrissy disappeared, and then she runs into Kyle, who's breaking down, being oh my god, this is my penance. I get this is my punishment. I'm away from my family, and this is what I deserve for cheating on Lana. Which Lois is no one deserves to be alone. And then hard cut to him disappearing, going back and getting reunited with Lana and the kids, but it's heartbreaking because in that moment Lois is alone, probably not in the entire world, but definitely on that street, because there was a whole bunch of Allie's followers that were out in the street ready to merge. Because we saw a whole bunch of people in black jackets on the other world, so I'm oh, are those Allie's people popped over, but they haven't merged with their counterparts yet? They're just a whole bunch of people in the streets. But it's kind of heartbreaking that Lois is there. And once again, it's just pure pandemonium, planes phasing into this world and crashing and phasing out. It's just, and you're just in that moment, she wants to be with her family, but she can't right now. And obviously, Jonathan and Jordan are worried because their dad doesn't come back. But Sam said something I think is interesting, which is some interesting lore to this world, is he said, I've been with the DoD for a long time, and I've peeked into other worlds and the legion of heroes that they have. And he's even though our world only has your dad, I'm okay, so one, this finally definitively confirms that this is a different Earth. It's very similar to Earth 1, but saying that this is the only, Superman is the only hero on this planet. So for the past 20 years, Clark has been the sole protector of this entire world. So this is not Arrowverse continuity. This is not the same Superman played by Tyler Hoechlin from Supergirl. This is a different Earth. It might be Earth 3, because we know the new Earth 2 is the Earth that Stargirl takes place on. So we can say at least maybe, it could be any other number of Earths. Because we never actually found, because Black Lightning, we never actually found out what Earth it took place on. They kept that super vague. just know that it wasn't Earth 1 or Earth 2 or 3, maybe. I don't, that, like, at the very least, we know, like, because Jennifer met the other versions of herself across Earth 1 and 2, regardless. But other than that, it's just, I thought that was really interesting because they've kept that super vague for now, and most people are kind of on the assumption, like, right, this is in the same continuity as Arrowverse. It still technically is because the multiverse exists, but it's not the mainline continuity. It's not on Earth 1, so that's interesting. And I think it also adds ability of like, wow, Clark's been soloing this for such a long time. It's so interesting, and I think it's kind of a neat parallel. Batwoman kind of, I mean, at least initially, there's stuff later on that almost hints that it's like, it wasn't like maybe post-crisis things kind of changed, but pre-crisis at the very least, the way that Luke talked about it, Bruce was the only hero in Gotham. So I think it's interesting to kind of parallel that a little bit. Because even in Supergirl, it's like, right, Superman already existed. Clark had been Superman for a while. So, and even Oliver, under the assumption he's the only, like, he was the first hero in the Arrowverse on Earth 1. You know, before they found out, like, wait, there's no such thing as a Batman. That whole thing, right? During Elseworlds. So it's just an interesting parallel knowing that like, Batman was soloing it for a very long time, and the same thing for Superman. So I mean, I think it's very befitting that those who are the the two prongs that kind of serve as the head of the Justice League to some extent. I mean, I think it's more Batman than Superman, but I think it's somewhat an even split. It's just the dichotomy between them always represents kind of like the forefront of the Justice League. Either way, Sam's point was, which is also interesting, that means like, right, he's peeked into like the multiverse and stuff like that. He's aware of it because he said that line. But he's like, I don't give up on hope if your dad, because your dad's like the greatest heroes. Like he's always kind of been like the finest of them all. And so we see Clark burning up in the sun, but he focuses on what he's got back home, his sons, his wife, and what he's fighting for in that moment. Just like, it's so badass of him, just like the calm of the storm of like the sun burning around him, and just him just calm and absorbing all the energy from the sun, and jettisons out to the point like you could see him like erupt from the sun. It's almost like I don't know how to properly put it. Just like stylistically, it looks so dope, and just like him flying in the air, and then like the energy surging like at the core of the L sigil on his suit, the family L sigil, and then like and then just it's circulating throughout the suit. He ends up popping in, grabbing Natalie and John Henry, and then bringing them back down, and then going toe-to-toe with Allie. And in that moment, she's trying to like parasite off him. He's like, go ahead, take more. It's just like he's trying to overload her with too much energy, because it's like, right, you're probably not used to absorbing this much raw energy all at once. And then with one like mighty push, like in that moment, I guess, like, while they're kind of, like, absorbing too much energy, it fractured kind of their being. And in that moment, he hits them once, separates them, brings them both down. I love at first when he was circling around, I'm like, which movie was it? I don't remember. It's one of the Christopher Reeve movies. Was it Superman 3 or was it 2? Might have been before. I don't remember. Actually, I don't have the greatest memory. Like, I remember bits and pieces just because people, because of stuff here and there, but I don't remember the Christopher Reeve Superman movies that well. I don't know if I've ever seen them all the way through. Either way, he's circling her because, I'm thinking like, are you about to rewind time? What's going on? But he's like building up momentum, and then all of a sudden he strikes the ground, and I was like, from a cinematography look, that like it erupting like that from in the energy when he made the impact, I was like, oh, that's so, I want to freeze frame on that because I'm like, that looks so cool. It's almost interesting because it's almost like a polar opposite to, parallel and almost opposite to how season 1 ended, because it was like, right, the Tal Roa, he was the Eradicator, and then like I think it was the hammer building up momentum and slamming into him. Like, it was kind of a similar thing, because like how, obviously this was orange sun energy, and everything from the Eradicator was like blue energy, so it's almost like an interesting parallel. But yeah, the day was saved, and it's just kind of like, and just everyone's cheering because in that moment, I guess, because obviously X-Kryptonite was kind of like I guess, like, with all the energy he built up, all he had to do was, like, release it. I don't know whether that was, like, he struck the X-Kryptonite and that sent, like, a shattering wave across everything, separating both worlds. Not really sure how that 100% worked. Once again, kind of don't care. Looks super sick and badass, so who cares? But in that moment, Lois is there and everything's great. And they're celebrating, was it Miracle Monday? They're celebrating their hero. And I love what Lana says, that, we put our differences aside, we come together for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. Because I've talked about this. If you didn't see DC Fandom, I don't know if they've implemented it in the comics yet. I know that, because at DC Fandom, Jim Lee said, like, going forward, that was going to be Superman's new mission statement. Previously, his mission statement was truth, justice, in the American way. It's been like that for a very long time. Now, whether it's been, I would almost, because Superman's been around since the 30s, it's understandable. Superheroes get used as, like, propaganda, especially back then. They still kind of do, but also, like, for political stuff, which people use that as, like, oh, keep politics out of comics, yada yada. That's a very, like, ignorant conversation in my point, because it's like, right, everything has a political, everything uses politics, superhero comic books, movies, TV shows, so on and so forth. So it's just kind of interesting when people are just like, oh, keep politics out of that. Regardless, putting all that aside. But I don't know. I'm assuming that got implemented, because that was, like, back in last year. DC Fandom, that they had talked about that. So it's neat to kind of hear it in this show, because I think that's the first time we've heard it in this show. So some people who are comic book readers probably might have already seen that pop up way before now, but it's just nice to kind of hear that, because obviously it's very reflective of this world and not necessarily 100% the world that truth, justice in the American way, that came about in a very different world than where we are today. And Better Tomorrow is a better fit, in my opinion. So I just like being able to hear that. Lana was like, yes. And it's also nice to know that Lana and Clark are in a good place now. And she's like, right, after finding out what, your truth, she's like, I thought I needed to be separated, like I needed space to kind of deal with that. But for her, it's like, I couldn't imagine going through, like, my life, like, with everything, and not having you there. And Clark was, like, saying the same thing too. And I'm like, I'm glad to see that they're in a good spot. I love that Lois told Chrissy finally. I was almost thinking Chrissy was going to find out on her own, but she was like, yeah, Clark's only ever worked one place, and that was the Daily Planet. And it's like, okay, my husband's Superman. She's like, no, wait, oh my God. She's like, I've just been told the biggest, how many people actually noticed? She's like, outside of the family, only a handful of people. She's like, oh my God, I know, like, the biggest secret ever. Like, the biggest secret. It's like, oh my God, do I get to sign, like, do a thing of secrecy? She's like, no, all you have to do is just not tell anybody else. And Chrissy, her reaction, what immediately crossed my mind is, Felicity from Arrow. Chrissy is giving me Felicity vibes, like, because, like, the way Felicity's just kind of, like, awkward and kind of nerdy and dorky, that's what Chrissy was giving me this episode, especially because, like, Clark and Lois are dancing later, and I love that literally for, like, that entire sequence, while they're talking and about to start dancing, you can see Chrissy in the distance. Like, she's just staring at them for a good 10 seconds in the background, and then Clark looks at her, and she's still staring. It's like, she's been looking at me all day, and at one point she tried to cover up her face, because it's too much for her to handle. I love it, and Lois is like, yeah, I'm gonna have to do something about that. I was like, that's super adorable. I love her reaction to that. Yeah. Because, like, I probably feel like the most recent superhero person to have that reaction, like, oh my God, finding out someone is this particular superhero. I feel like the last time we got that, like, extreme reaction, at least to my recollection, do correct me, is, like, Ned, when he found out about, Peter. Because, like, Ned's reaction is pretty much Chrissy's reaction, so I loved it. I thought that was super nice. It is kind of a shame about Kyle and Lana. Because Lana's like, right, like, I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but it's like, you will always be a part of this family. Even if we're married, because Kyle was kind of holding out hope, and even Sarah kind of kept seeing it like, right, he was kind of holding out hope that everything would be okay, but it's like, right, it's like, you guys are the most important thing to me. It's like, but for Lana, it's like, yeah, but that hurts a little bit more. We are the most important thing to you, yet you still had an affair, so they're having their final dance, and Clark's listening in. He's just like, I wish everyone could be as happy as we are, you know? Because it's like, yeah, like, it seems sadly they are the only ones kind of going through the really rough patch. Because, you know, Natalie and John Henry are hanging out. They're good on that front. So I thought that was pretty dope. Sarah and, Jonathan and his girlfriend, Candace, they're good. What that kind of means in the grand scheme of things, especially, I mean, I guess with everything going on, it's like, yeah, let's kind of put the kryptonite and football game stuff, like, you know, sports in general at the school, like, let's kind of put that to the wayside with everything going on. Sarah and Jordan, because now Sarah's informed. Once again, is Kyle going to be the one to know? Sophie and Kyle are probably going to still be in the dark about it, but now Sarah knows, like, right, all the stuff I found out about you and your dad recently, and Sarah's kind of blaming her. She's like, right, you kind of had, like, your reasons for not telling me. It's like, right, I understand. It's such a big secret. It has to be someone you really trust. He's like, I do trust you. And she's like, right, I kissed someone at camp. He's like, no, we already went through that. She's like, yeah, but I never apologized. That, like, you know, I kind of just responded by all the stuff I wanted from a relationship and never really focused on, like, what you wanted. So for them, they're kind of starting over. It's like, right, just like with Lana, it's like kind of no more lies. We're all going to be up front telling the truth. So the Kents and that family, it's going to be interesting to see what that dynamic looks like going forward. It seems like Lucy's moving to Metropolis, and I think she's in a better place now. It's going to be interesting to see whether we get any more Lucy in the future or not. Because I was wondering, because I saw Jenna Dwayne's name, so I was like, oh, like, and she was on, so she's only in that one scene. So I thought that was interesting. I was like wondering, because I saw her name in the opening credits. I saw another name that I was like, okay, we haven't seen that person yet either. It just, you know, jumping ahead, it was I saw David Ramsey's name. I was like, oh, so Diggle's going to be in this. It's like interesting. You'd assume this is. Once again, it's also that complicated thing because it's like it's not the same continuity as The Flash, so that's on a different Earth. But Diggle could still be, you know, very similar lives. They're like, yeah, I'm going through a similar thing on that. I mean, they could always do an interesting thing. I don't know if they do that because it probably complicate things too much. Be like, oh, this one Diggle out there ended up deciding to take the ring, were given the opportunity, while the others ended up turning it down. Because really quickly, I thought he was setting up. Once I still need to look into it whether or not that's still a thing or not. The Justice You thing that Diggle was going to lead a squad, and I was almost like, oh, could Natalie be a part of that? Because I was like, no, I'd assume they keep her here because I wouldn't. I'd assume like Jordan wouldn't either go either. So, but I was wondering if he was going to come and try and recruit Natalie for like that Justice Youth Day. But that's a college thing, and I don't think they're seniors or anything. And I don't remember. I don't actually know what grade they are in high school. Like I don't think they're at college yet. I don't think they're up to that point. Tangents and all that aside. Because I know that's something related to, like, kids going undercover at a college to unveil some, like, stuff and their metahumans and stuff like that, regardless. We'll get to that in a... Well, since I'm already here, I'll talk about it. Diggle was looking into a guy named Bruno, and it turns out he's part of a group called the Intergang, and I'm like, that name sounds so familiar. Okay, so really quickly, just a quick Google thing... Apparently, the Inner Gang is connected to Darkseid, which is like, okay, that's wild. But this is like, obviously, like, some like deep Superman lore stuff. Once again, this is just a quick Google thing, which also one of the agents of it is Morgan Edge. So obviously, that's not a thing in this continuity. But I don't know if they're, because it's basically, it's basically a gang run by people who have access to weaponry created by Darkseid. You're like, wait, so... Are we tiptoeing towards Darkseid in this? Because I'd assume, like, that would be, like, a major Arrowverse thing, but I mean, I feel like Darkseid typically gets put in Superman-related stuff. I mean, he was in Smallville, like, a version of Darkseid was in Smallville. Spoilers, Krypton was heading down the Darkseid route as well, because we saw, like, his Omega symbol. So that was kind of interesting. So, not saying this would lead necessarily to Darkseid, but we'd probably be like on the more human front connection to Darkseid. Apparently, like from like what was it like? Apocalypse like supplies these people with like weaponry from like what weaponry from Apocalypse is. Once again, just a tiny Googling I've done. So I was like, that's Interesting. So this ain't just some small thing, because Diggle's bringing this to his attention, because it's like, right, Bruno's the one who killed John Henry, this Earth's John Henry Irons. So the question is, why? Because he must have gotten super deep into finding out about what they were up to. So I think that's going to be probably, it seems like, considering what that group is all about, seems like that might be like the main antagonist of the next season, like the big threat, at the very least, it seems, because no other major threats were set up except for that. Turns out, like, also one of the people associated with is Lex, which is going to be interesting to see how they handled it. Once again, based on what they're saying, this is a different Earth, but maybe not. Well, we know that, well, because he's from a different Earth. I was about to say, like, we know John Henry Irons pretended to be Lex because he took Lex's stuff, but it's like, right, that's because he's from a different Earth, so even that wouldn't even be the same Lex anyway, but still. I was just looking up, too. It's actually kind of interesting. One of the other members, I mean, I guess, just depends. Well, there's Thaddeus Kilgrave, which he was introduced last season as just kind of a villain that Clark already dealt with, but then he got released, but then he ended up getting arrested again. I believe that was it. Oh, Tobias Well from Black Lightning apparently was connected. Also, I saw someone else. Oh, the Prankster. God, who else did I see? Oh, Magpie, who's been in Batwoman. Once again, these are just members that were already there, and I'm just talking about characters that exist in the DC like Arrowverse or DC CW shows that will have nothing to do with this, but it's interesting to know that there are correlations and connections there. The Toyman, the Ventriloquist, which I'm assuming that's the Batman Ventriloquist, and yeah, it is. Okay, it's a long list. I was just scanning through that really quickly. I just thought that was interesting. So I just thought that was all really, really fascinating. So, I really quickly moving on, because I got severely sidetracked with all of that. It's gonna be, like I said, just be interesting to see how like that like shapes up, and like what characters will they use, because some of those characters were characters that have already been used elsewhere in Arrowverse. So they probably, but also it's a long list of people that are connected to that. So they'll probably change it up a little from the TV show, but they'll probably also use characters that probably haven't been used, maybe even live action wise, or even those who have been live action wise, they'll just do a different version of them for the inner gang. So we'll see. I'm setting him up to be like the main antagonist, because what I was reading is like typically they give most superheroes a run for their money. So you could definitely see this being kind of like, they're probably like their version of doing like, because obviously Legion of Doom for Legends of Tomorrow was on a very, very, very small scale, because it was only Eobard, Malcolm Merlin, and Damien Dark, and a version of Leonard Snart, Captain Cole, before he joined the Legends and such, right? So that's all we got. We got a very small Legion of Doom. They could almost do that again with the inner gang, but do it on a much bigger scale. Either way, the thing I was going to go to next was, right, Talro getting Jordan and Jonathan their own trucks, like as gifts, and it's like, don't worry, Dad, don't worry, I'll send him a thank you letter. He's like, that's not the point. And it's like, oh, I wonder where he is. Lo and behold, he's on the other Earth. He's like, hello, weird Smallville. I've traveled all the way here. Drinks are on me. And the lady's like, oh, the bartender's like, oh, I can't believe you're here considering all the trouble your wife made. He's like, yeah, I know. Now, who was that again? Which we know it's Lana, which sends my brain in multiple directions. One, I guess it makes you wonder they quickly kind of shift over that, but we don't, you assume, obviously, Bizarro Lois ends up back on her Earth. I assume the same thing for Lana, and because I'm sure everyone who was, well, not everyone, because both Alleys ended up, well, even Bizarro Alley is still on this Earth. So it makes you wonder, is Bizarro Lana and Bizarro Jonathan still locked up here as well? Because they were locked up last episode, But we know his wife is Lana. So the question then becomes like, is he going to try and get with, Bizarro Lana? It's like, would he really want to go down that route? Or because our Lana is entering single territory because her and Kyle are getting divorced. Will that be a thing? That'd be weird. That'd be interesting. That'd be kind of awkward. But that'd be really, really fascinating if they went down that route. but also like she knows him as Morgan Edge and all the problems he's caused before. So would he be able to smooth things over? I mean, granted, he was able to smooth things over at least to some extent with his nephews and with Lois this season. So who knows? But we'll see. That'd be interesting if he tried. But I'm assuming he'd go with Bizarro Lana. But it's like, right, you're not her Tauro because he's dead, and so maybe they'll make it work. I don't know. Other than all of that, right, the other thing I wanted to talk about was Lois visiting both alleys. And now without their powers, they're not much of an issue, but it's like, right, Lois actually wondering, like, did you actually feel complete? And she said, for a split moment, we did. She's like, well, we felt joy. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm asking. It's like, yeah, we felt that. But then it's like, but then we just felt that hunger after. So, well, then why'd you do that? Why'd you really want to make other people that same way? And it's because if they kept up like that and left everyone as they were, they would have been alone. And which is like, oh, it's kind of interesting, that selfish need to like not be alone, because you'd be this all-powerful being and you'd kind of be an entity on your own and it'd separate you from the rest of humanity. But Lois is like, well, at the very least, you're not alone anymore. And both alleys are there like holding hands. So I guess, even in the end, like they're not completely alone either. So that's fascinating. And then finally, Clark takes the family on like a trip out to the middle of the water and kind of like, oh, why are we here? And it's because he's making a new Fortress of Solitude, but it's not just for him, it's for the whole family. It's like, that's dope. And it's out in the middle of the water. So it's like, yeah, my mom was going to want to meet you, and this way she could show you off some Kryptonian technology, which I think is going to fill that void where like Jonathan doesn't have any powers, but he'll have Kryptonian technology kind of balance that out. Because in that suit, she was originally going to give it to Jonathan, but she's going to keep that, I'm sure, and he's probably going to either build a suit of his own or just use some technology to kind of even the playing field a little bit anytime any future trouble arises. But there is a part of me that's in the back of my mind. Well, for one, I love the final line of just being, this is just the beginning. It's like, yeah, it almost feels like an ending in so many regards. So it is interesting for it just to be a season finale. But I guess you could make the argument it's almost like this is the ending of one giant arc. I mean, it's really the second arc, but it has that feeling of like, yeah, we're moving on to a whole new arc in this next season. But part of me wonders, and once again, like since I referenced it earlier, All-Star Superman, will there be ramifications for Clark doing what he did, absorbing all that solar energy? Probably not. They probably won't go down that route after such a hopeful ending to go kind of depressing like that. But I don't know. It'd be interesting if there were some ramifications for him doing that, but they probably won't go down that route. So. And as I was saying, Superman and Lois is coming back for a third season. I'm so fascinated to see where these new developments end up taking us. Like I said, what the antagonist situation look like, the storylines that end up taking place, what new characters we get to see, what new villains. It's definitely going to be very, very interesting to see what happens next season. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.